Welcome to the Christian Nutrition Casual Review. I'm your host, Wesley, and of course, I'm joined by my co-host,
Mary.
And Mary, what episode are we reviewing today?
Today's episode is called Being Gentle Makes You Great.
Being Gentle Makes You Great. Not a very exciting title. I will say the titles have been kind of hit or miss with our catching up that we've been doing recently.
Yeah, they're all like a little long.
I like the Shakespeare's play. It definitely gives you ooh, sounds a little interesting. But this one, not as impressive. Little things matter.
It's always the lesson usually.
Yeah.
And which is kind of boring. You want to be surprised by what the lesson is.
Is it? Do I? Is that what I'm here for?
OG VeggieTales. It was not the name of the lesson was.
Let's run through a couple names of OG VeggieTales episodes.
Madam Blueberry.
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't tell you the lesson. It's just Madam Blueberry, or even Lyle the Kindly Viking. I mean, it says he's kindly, but it's just the name of the character.
True. Okay, so trying to slip.
Josh and the Big Wall.
Yep. So it was more like
it
was more like what the story is, because Madam Blueberry to me, I know she was a character in that, but it really was the story of Madam Blueberry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like the titles were whatever the story was, and now it's whatever the lesson is.
Right.
I see. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Now the next episode we review will not have the issue, but I feel like most of these do have that naming issue.
Yeah.
It's just not as interesting.
And they try to alliterate it, if that's the right word, I think.
Alliterate.
Right. Gentle, great.
Obliterate. They wanted to blow up the episode.
I don't remember any of the others, but no, not obliterate.
Yes, obliterate. Blow up the episode. I hear you loud and clear. We're going to blow this episode up. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. You're not going to. Okay. So, yes. This is we're catching up on all these episodes that we missed on Yippee. This is number 6 out of 7. Though technically, I guess I should start just numbering them the way that they really are. And this would be we did 4 episodes. Okay, so this is episode 10.
Okay. That's not confusing.
As of the time of this recording, there's 11 total, but this is episode 10 so far. But they're doing one a month, and I anticipate next month there will be another one, and they'll finally hit 12. And I think we're almost getting to a point where I would actually, if you're a fan of VeggieTales, recommend signing up for Yippee.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not already there, I would say in the beginning when there's only 3 or 4, is it really worth paying a month? Maybe they weren't great episodes in the beginning, but I feel like it's been way more hit and miss, and I feel like we're to a point where even though I think there are more misses than hits overall, I do think we've reached the point where it's
it's worth it.
It's worth signing up for a month and paying money for sure. I think there's so much.
It's cheaper than buying an episode. I mean,
it's $6 for a month, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't quote me on that. Could change.
It's worth it for sure.
Mm-hmm. I feel like at this point, but in the beginning it was only 3 or 4, and they weren't very good. Oh no.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't really talked about this episode at all, so let's get into that instead. What is this episode all about?
It's about being gentle.
Wow. All right. Well, bye, everyone. That's the second time this episode we're leaving.
Bye.
I'm leaving. Bye. You continue without me.
Okay. So, shockingly, this episode begins with someone bursting through the door again.
What?
And it's Larry.
What? Okay, I'm back. You have piqued my interest. I have never heard this beginning before.
You probably just slept through the beginning, apparently.
Uh-huh.
No, the beginning was, sure, they did the exact same thing that they always do.
As almost always.
Well, it seems like they've been
getting to a point where they're joking about it, too.
Probably.
Well, remember, because I know we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but Larry even says, and then Mr. Nezra will say, and then he shows up and says, curtains in 10 seconds.
That to me is fine and funny, but I thought you meant they were joking about him bursting in.
No,
again.
not yet.
No, they haven't done that yet.
Eventually it'll happen.
He bursts in. He's all sad, or not sad. He's I guess excited.
Well, no, he's scared because the entire planet of Pluto is now missing.
Gone. Yeah, but he wants to start an investigative report on it
and
do a show. And I was like, yeah, that would be really interesting.
Yes, let's do that.
Where is Pluto? But Bob's like, no, we have to teach the kids something.
Bob really
that's not going to help the kids at all.
Yes.
Why wouldn't it help the kids to know where Pluto is? Mm-hmm. Why not? Anyways, and so
hold on, Bob really buzzkills this episode. If you think about it. Not only Bob, but Phil Vischer actually wrote this episode. I'm paying more attention now to who's writing each episode to see which ones are the ones. And when I see Phil Vischer at the beginning writing, and I'm like, it's gotten to a point where I see him or Mike, and I'm actually a little disappointed, and that's terrible, and I don't want to say that.
It's a little sad.
But it is, if you really think about the episodes that we liked, like I go back and look and it's like the ones we like more are not the ones written by Phil or Mike. And that's a little sad, and I hope it changes course.
I mean, Bob has always been the straight character to Larry's character, but he's never been just like, no, we can't do that. That doesn't teach the kids anything.
But it's not that I think Phil's unfunny, by the way. That's not what I'm saying, because I do want to clarify. Because when Mr. Lunch shows up in this episode, he's the best part again, and that is Phil.
Right.
So let's just have a Mr. Lunt.
There's still good parts in it.
Let's have a Mr. Lunt focused episode. Let's get that. I want a Mr. Lunt controlling the entire episode.
Or Archibald, because he comes up with an idea next, and he's like,
Phil had these great ideas and he didn't use them.
I have an idea to teach the kids about King Henry VIII, which granted is not a great subject.
No.
But
he wants to teach them British history.
He wants to teach them British history.
And this, yes.
And Madame Blueberry's like, well, Bob doesn't like British history, but he likes French history. And Bob was like, well, actually, I normally don't like British history. And I don't know where this joke is coming from. Like, why doesn't Bob like British history?
It wasn't really well explained.
Yeah.
Not from my understanding, the new VeggieTales, I don't think they've ever talked about this.
No, it was kind of random. But it seemed like it was like a well-known fact. Like, Bob doesn't
like
it
was like
history.
Like how we knew Bob hated QWERTY, but it got to a point where it was like, it was every episode. So, of course, we knew Bob hated QWERTY.
Right.
But here...
It's like, what? Bob
it does,
hates British
it kind
history?
of comes out of left field.
Okay. But he bought a costume, and so he was excited to do a British history show.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, cool, this will be fun.
This will be
different. No, the costume was ruined by Jimmy and Jerry putting it in the wash for 12 hours or something ridiculous.
Well, they did like extra super heavy duty wash. And they said there was literally little tiny hammers that helped pound out the dirt of this new costume they bought. That's what they said.
Right.
And of course, even though it's hung up back on the rack, somehow they didn't realize they ruined it until they came into like that day when they're all talking about 10 seconds to curtain or whatever, you know? So I don't know. It's a whole thing. Right. I want to mention how let's pause because it's not that there's so many good ideas here in the beginning. We could have half the episode be about this investigation for Pluto. That's a complete joke. Like that's fine because there's going to be a lesson, you know? And then there could be a British history, and through British history where you can learn the lesson of gentleness. This could be good. Yeah. Like we really could have had a whole episode of solid, but none of that is really capitalized on. We could ignore the British history almost completely except as a side joke, even though that would have been a funny premise, I think, for an actual episode.
King Henry VIII was not a gentle person.
No, not at all. For anyone who doesn't know, you can Wikipedia. And then the Pluto thing is funny, and they do use it later on in the episode as a silly song. It's a rushed silly song, unfortunately, but it is a silly song, and it is a funny idea. And even in the silly song, it's a little funny, but it's like it's kind of rushed. Yeah. And I wish it wasn't rushed. I wish it had just been like a third of this episode, like as its own story. Like Larry could have been Sherlock Holmes again, or whatever he was in the past. Sherlock Holmes, trying to find where Pluto went. Like it would have been funny, and he could have been not gentle to Watson again.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
See, it's all there.
Yeah, it's all there.
It just was like the funny ideas were pushed aside so we could do this Bible story at the end that reuses a set from Shakespeare's play.
Let's talk about that when we get there.
I'm just a little disappointed because there was so much potential here at the beginning that was set up. It's not like we walked in the episode and it was just boring.
Right.
It's set up with a bunch of potential. Like, yes, all these ideas were presented and you and I were like, yes, do that, please. Yes. And they didn't do them.
No, nothing.
So what was the first?
Well, what we were going to mention was that Bob, even though this whole time he's like, no, that doesn't teach the kids a lesson, or no, that wouldn't be appropriate for the kids.
I think it's what Phil actually said when he came up with the funny idea. He's like, no,
probably.
It's not teach kids a lesson. Just talk to us, Phil. Talk to us. We'll tell you how to make it into the lesson for free.
We've got the idea. Hey, don't commit us to anything.
Sorry, not for free.
I'm just kidding.
We have a small commission fee.
No, but then Bob immediately has like this personality swing where he's like super upset, super angry, he gets really mean with Jimmy and Jerry, which of course that's the point of the lesson. But it seems like Bob is the one that's learning the lessons all the time.
Well,
and he's the manager of the show.
Larry learned
it's Bob or it's Larry. Or no, I think
Larry
so
usually
far,
learns lessons because he's dumb, and Bob learns lessons because he has a personality shift in the episode.
Right. It's
that has to be corrected by the end.
Doesn't know anything, which is, I don't know.
Bob's
to me,
usually level-headed.
Right. It used to be Bob telling the story to Junior or Bob telling the story to Larry. Like, Bob was the guy that knew everything.
Bob would occasionally have a thing that he had to learn.
Sure, because everyone has something. But now it's like it's always Bob or it's always Larry learning the lesson.
In this episode, it definitely felt like out of left field, Bob is having a huge personality shift just so a lesson can be learned. It's like, we have like 10 characters here. Like, have somebody else be not gentle. Right. And it would have made sense. Like, Jimmy or Jerry not doing it would have been a personality shift again, but it would have been less jarring because Bob's not the one. If Bob's mean to anyone, it's like being mean to the Verse Angel or to Qwerty, which is basically the same thing, I guess, at this point. But he's usually not just like lashing out at people. And maybe in OG VeggieTales, I can probably, without naming what episodes, a few times maybe, but not new VeggieTales.
Yeah, he would get mad at Larry for stuff, and he would, I think, and he would do.
But this here felt different.
But this does feel.
This didn't feel like it was setting up for a joke. It just felt like Bob just needed to learn a lesson, so we had him lash out at somebody.
And so everyone gathers around and was like, "Bob, you were a little harsh on them, you know." You know, and then Petunia has a letter.
Bob's like,
from
"What
a
did
kid.
I do?"
Yeah, Bob's like, "What do you mean? I'm a leader. I have to be strong."
Yeah, it's just like ridiculous. Yeah, it was such a setup.
Really so then Larry's like, "Well, we have a good." Larry's like, "Okay, we have a story about gentleness, or maybe it's Paw Grape." Somebody was like,
"Paw Grape."
Let's do a story or a show about gentleness. And Larry's like, "Well, we better figure it out before Mr. Nether says."
And Mr. Nether pops up and says, 10 seconds to curtain.
So that's the second time they've done that joke. And it's kind of funny. They're acknowledging that they don't know what they're doing. So the first story is Madame Blueberry, which I think this is the first time she's done a story.
To my recollection, yes.
And it was pretty lame. She was like,
to be fair though, I do not remember. I barely remember the first 4 episodes we reviewed. So
sure, she could have done another story. But she led this story. It was like supposedly a French fairy tale. Everything rhymed. And it was about a chicken farmer who wanted to get a lot of eggs at one time. So he built a machine.
We're getting to a point where all these things starting to blend together.
And just cracked all the eggs. I mean, it was just like
on stage performances.
Kind of boring.
Yeah. So let's just skip over it then.
Sure.
What happens in between? Does anything happen in between her story and the next story?
In between her story...
No, nothing. We just go straight to the next story?
We just go straight to the next story, yes. Okay. Because Archibald says, and I have the story ends, and they're like, that was good, Madame Blueberry. They're backstage. Yeah. And Bob's like, yeah, that was good. I can see how you should be gentle to eggs. What does that have to do with people?
Bob, pay attention.
So then
you just want to like shake Bob, make him into ketchup.
Archibald has a Bible story. So he starts his Bible story. I think the best thing about the Bible story was the beginning when Archibald's talking about King Solomon and Larry thinks he's King Solomon.
So I want to give credit. They picked a Bible story that is not commonly used for kids at all. Like I remember this Bible story, but it's been so long since I've read it. So go ahead and tell everyone who's listening like what Bible story we're about. So
the Bible story is about King Rehoboam, who is Solomon's son. So after Solomon dies, and that was the joke that I thought was funny. Archibald talks about King Solomon, then talks about his death, and there's like a P off stage playing. It's taps. So wasn't he playing taps or Reveille? He was playing something.
I don't know.
Really sad and mournful. And Archibald just like looks at him and glares, and it's really funny. Yeah. So King Solomon dies. His son Rehoboam becomes king, and the people come to him, or the leaders of the people in the Bible story come to him and say, we've been working really hard for King Solomon. We built the temple. We built his palace. You know, we've been doing all this stuff. Do you think you'll be able to lay off on us, basically? You know, can we have a rest? Yeah. And so he says, I'll think about it.
They say if you treat us more softly, we'll treat you as king. Which, by the way,
that's not necessarily in the Bible story.
Well, I know. What I was about to say is that, so it's like King Solomon gets to work them hard, but now that we have a new king, if you don't treat us nicer than Solomon, we're not going to treat you as king. But we treated Solomon as king. Right. Like, what? Okay, so really, and I know this is obviously how it's presented on the VeggieTales show. It's like, really what they do want to be treated nicer, but the reality is it was like, it's kind of a weird situation. Like, okay, you have to treat us nicer or we won't treat you as king, is how it was presented. And it's like, what if you just treat you exactly the same as King Solomon, who you treated as king? Like, right. So that's not good enough. I obviously know it's a kid's thing, and I know that it's just when stuff like that comes up, I'm like,
yeah, it was almost unnecessary.
There's a logical gap for no reason.
Right. Yeah. And they came in holding a bunch of pitchforks. Like they were all holding pitchforks, and I'm like, are they already becoming?
They're ready to revolt.
But they weren't. because later when they do revolt, they're not carrying pictures. I don't know. That part was confusing. I guess it was showing how hard they've been working, but they should have had different tools.
Land. Yeah.
Anyways. So no, in the Bible story, basically the leaders of the people say, we've been working really hard the past few years. Can we have a break? They don't say, or we won't treat you as king.
Yeah, or we won't treat you as king, yeah.
I mean, and so King Rehoboam asks his friends, he goes to the old men, the King Solomon's counselors, and asks them, this isn't in the VeggieTales, but he asks the old counselors are like, the people have worked really hard. They deserve a break. You don't need a new palace. We have a new palace. We have a new temple, da-da-da-da. Yeah, sure. Let them have a break. But then he goes to his friends who he grew up with in the palace, and they're all like, no, the people need to respect you. Bring the law, bring the hammer, basically. And so he does that. He tells the leaders of the people. So then the leaders of the people rebel. 10 of the tribes leave and crown their own king, who I don't remember exactly why they picked him. But
basically, it becomes just like Star Wars. There's an empire, which is King Rehoboam.
Oh my
And then there's, well, not really. I guess King, he only gets 2 people to agree with him, it says. Well, it's like two tribes. 2 tribes agree with him, and the other 10 agree with Junior, unfortunately.
Yes.
Because Junior portrays
King Jeroboam.
Why? All right. So anyways, so I guess maybe not. No, okay. Star Wars is not a great comparison here. Not even close.
Not even close.
We just watched Mandalorian. That's what happened. And it's in my brain.
Okay.
My brain.
So as you said before, they reused a set. They reused the set from King Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
Which was
and
in the Shakespeare
felt lazy.
It did feel a little
because
lazy.
It was literally copy and pasted set. And there was like, I get that it can be used, but it's like, could we do something different with it to make it not feel like we just copy and pasted it? But my suspicion is that the next episode, which is a Larry Boy episode, and it's not set on the stage, may have made them get a little lazy here because they have to spend extra time in the next episode.
As in they didn't have time.
Because this is once a month.
Yeah.
Every month until the end of time.
Right. I mean, it makes sense from the fact of if you're working at a theater, you reuse the same stages and props all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, something a little bit different would have been nice.
It was, there was like no change at all to the set. Yeah. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is the same place where Larry was literally launching people on a seesaw to
and
their
Larry
death.
Larry was also the king in that one.
Yeah, he was also the king in that one. It really felt like a copy and pasted job.
Right.
Yeah.
But
even though I like the fact that they used a different story than what I would expect normally.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they're really going to be using a Bible story in nearly every episode like it has been so far, they're doing one a month, they're going to have to start really getting into new Bible stories or retreading on ones that they've done in the OG VeggieTales, which they kind of have done a little bit, well, especially with like Noah. To be fair, I don't really count that as an OG VeggieTales episode. But then that means that the series ended on Beauty and the Beat, and that was also a terrible episode. So
I don't know.
OG VeggieTales kind of went out with a whimper.
Noah's in the Ark, honestly.
Yeah.
What I did like about the Bible story, what was, I don't know, slightly interesting.
This episode sucked.
About the Bible story was when he went to go talk to his younger friends, they did this whole rap. I don't know. It was fun.
No, that's true. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Lunt comes in and he's fun, and he because the King Rehoboam, I'm saying his name wrong. Rehoboam, Larry is like, oh, maybe I should be gentler because everyone asked me to, and Mr. Lunt's like, nah, dude, and then he does like a whole hip hop rap thing, and he's like, don't be gentler, be harder on them, and then Larry's like dreaming at night, like Queen's Gambit over here. Dreaming for anyone who's even seen that show. Yes, just like Queen's Gambit, VeggieTales, the same thing.
He was doing drugs and everything.
No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying the way he was like dreaming about Junior's like, be nice to us, and Lunt's like, be meaner, and it's like whole angel and devil on the shoulders thing. Mr. Lunt was pretty good. The silly song was rushed. I wish they had. I know we kind of skipped over it, but the silly song is all about Larry looking for Pluto. And he's like, and it's actually pretty good. It even rhymes. It just feels rushed, even though there's some jokes in there that are pretty funny. And Archibald comes out and he's like, actually, Pluto didn't go anywhere. He's like, what? Yeah, it's just a dwarf planet now. And then he's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And the curtains just kind of closed. It's like, there could have been more here.
Super fast. Like, it did feel
it was like the episode's 22 minutes, 23 minutes, and we have to go. Come on, go. So it's like.
But it was a fun, silly song. I really did like the idea of Pluto and how they kept bringing it back. So.
The real lesson to be learned here is that if you have funny ideas, figure out how to make the lesson work with those funny ideas. because the British history and the Pluto thing really could have been the two halves of this episode.
Yeah.
But we didn't do them. And for the sake of maybe they have, and you know what, to be fair though, I'm not working on the show. Maybe they had to do a Bible story. Maybe they had to. Maybe they were required to. But the first half could have been something other than the boring Madame Blueberry story with the eggs. So,
yes, for sure.
Anyways, no VeggieTales episode is perfect. They make one a month. I'm not too harsh. Just like this is definitely one of the weaker ones, and such a shame considering we have had, I would say, quite a few good ones actually, in this whole catching up that we've been doing. So
I also noticed their ending song had a motif, if you want to call it, from Billy Joe McGuffey.
wow, I didn't notice this at all.
Yeah, it was like be gentle. I can't sing it because we just watch it, but I can't.
That's
sing
fine.
It. But yeah, it had like the same.
I don't want a copyright
line.
strike from your beautiful voice.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
they had like the same beginning line from that song. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
Easter egg or laziness, whatever you prefer.
yeah. Can we just like stop talking about this episode
Sure.
and never think about it again for the rest of our lives?
Okay, bye.
Because next time we're reviewing
Larry Boy.
There's no hero quite like Larry Boy. Yes, next time we're reviewing the new Larry Boy episode. It's not set on a stage. It's a legit episode of Larry Boy, and I'm a little excited to talk about it. So we're done with this review. Never watch this video ever again. But thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.